James Dunn, from the book Reign Right Now, Lord, from fellowshipofthemartyrs.com. Excerpted from the book James Dunn, Sign Gift Ministry by W.V. Grant, Sr. James Dunn, healing revivalist of the early 20th century. Quote, I pastored the Pentecostal Holiness Church there for 2 years before this ministry came to me. I had been fasting and praying, and I had been reminding God. I believe God wants us to remind Him about the promises He has made to us, to call His attention to them. So I was reminding God that when I was employed in a responsible position for the government, we gave our men the best tools on earth possible to work with, so that they could do their job right. I told God that if we as mere human beings could give good tools to our laborers, how much better tools could He give us to work for the kingdom of Christ? I continued praying in that way and begging God for the gifts. Just imagine, I would cry, the tears rolling down my face. I would fast until the preachers in Princeton remarked that my clothes hung on me like a sack because I had lost so much weight. They thought that the clothes had belonged to someone else. I don't know how many pounds I did lose. I was way down in weight. One day, I was just in a big way of praying, tears streaming down my face as I was alone before God. I was asking Him again to give me the gifts of the Spirit. A voice spoke to me and said, "Just a minute." And I stopped, and a voice spoke again and said, "Don't beg for the gifts of the Spirit. Pray to be more like me." I said, "Why, Jesus, I had never thought of it in that manner. What do you mean, pray to be more like you?" And the voice said to me, "The gifts of the Spirit will operate in your life if you are full of Jesus." So I began to pray that I would be just exactly like Jesus. Then one night, while I was laying in bed and my wife was asleep, something happened. I was meditating on the glories and graciousness of God, and upon the things I needed from Him, and all at once the great presence of God began to flood into the room. He came in such a supernatural way that the room was filled with His glory. A great feeling of ecstasy and glory swept over me and saturated my very body, mind, and soul. I began to get afraid, because when you get that close to God, something happens to you. I began to draw back from His wonderful force, and when I did, it left. Then I realized I had made a mistake in drawing back. The next few days I began to pray as I had never prayed. In about 3 or 4 nights I was lying in the bed again, and I was meditating and praising the Lord, and asking Him for help and power in my life. All at once this great feeling began to come into the room again. The very room and atmosphere lighted up. There didn't seem to be any room for me there any longer, because God so completely filled the place. As I lay there, I lost all movement of my body other than my eyes. The great force of God moved down across my bed and overshadowed me, and I felt the strangest and most wonderful feeling. From my very fingertips it began to move into my hands and up my arms. I felt as if I were holding 220 volts in each hand, and it began to surge back and forth through my body. Then and there, in that room, while this was taking place, the old me was leaving, and the new me was coming in. From that night on, my life was different. Many remarked how completely my ministry had changed. I had a positive message, a message that had fire in it. God talked to me and told me that I would preach the message of deliverance. He would heal the sick. He would give me the power to cast out devils. As I listened to this commission from the Lord, His power surged through me, and my arm happened to touch my wife's body, and it almost caused her to jump completely out of bed. That night, God began doing things. He revealed to me the people's conditions and diseases through the mighty spirit of discernment. I found I was a different individual. God showed me things that I thought were impossible for a person to see or understand. He would show me the individual that was suffering, what they had, and He would direct me to them. After I had prayed for them, they would be healed of every disease. End quote. James Dunn, Sign Gift Ministry by W.V. Grant, Sr. More on this from fellowshipofthemartyrs.com.